Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll learn to become a better designer so you can dominate your competition. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I've got a special guest to talk about his career as an illustrator and graphic designer and painter. From a very early age, Michael Auger filled his bedroom walls with drawings and created picture books using the backsides of his father's government reports. In school, Michael became known as the class artist, contributing cartoons to the school's newspaper, magazine, and clubs, designing posters, t-shirts, and an animated opening for the morning news broadcast. He illustrated and self-published a children's book called Fish Tales that featured the collected poems of his sister, Jeanne Durso. Michael attended the Columbus College of Art and Design in Ohio and graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 1998. Ever since, he's been in Maryland, where he established his freelance graphic design and illustration business, Auger Artwork Studios. He's been an art teacher, graphic designer, and art director in addition to his freelance career, which has been his full-time profession since 2006. His offbeat paintings are exhibited at events and galleries in the Washington, D.C. area and are unapologetically bold, colorful, and fun. They feature a wide assortment of whimsical characters that appeal to the young at heart and are guaranteed to provoke a smile. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Colleen.
So I love how you drew on the backs of your father's government reports. I bet he loved that.
Yeah, he did. Actually, he'd bring back these big reports, and we were just short on drawing paper, so I'd just flip them over, and I'd make my own storybook using it from the other side.
That's hilarious because we never had enough drawing paper in my house either for me because I drew all the time.
Yep.
So I used to use the back of the old dot matrix paper that my father would bring home from work.
There you go. Same kind of deal. Yep.
Yeah, with the green and white bars on it. That's really old. So you've made a successful career as a graphic designer and illustrator and painter. What do you do more of, and what do you enjoy doing more?
Well, actually, it's roughly split 50-50 between the traditional fine art paintings, and then the other half is creating custom illustration and graphic design projects. It's really hard to say which I enjoy most. If I didn't do one, I'd miss the other. If I focused exclusively on one, it wouldn't be as fulfilling. I definitely like the diversity.
I'm kind of like that with print design and then web design. I like the techie and then I like the creative.
Right.
And would you say that graphic design is, more about the client, and then fine art is more about, someone connecting with your work and your personal artistic style?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And, I was born with a pencil and drawing tablet in my hand too. I used to draw faces and houses, but I could only draw realistically. Like I had no style. So I could never do anything cartoony or cool or offbeat or anything like that. And I think that's why I make a better graphic designer than illustrator.
Sure.
But you've had a unique style and you've had it for many years. And I remember your work from high school. And, I know you went to an art college. So how did art college affect that?
Well, going to an art school, I mean, it definitely helped with develop my skill. I learned all about different color techniques and various perspective and lighting and how to draw better. So it definitely influenced my style. But I think that there's in some cases, to a certain regard, you have that innate individual uniqueness that all artists do. So it's just basically intensifying that and bringing it out to, pushing it to the next level. And is kind of what school did.
Right. So if it's not going to create a talent where there isn't one, but it's going to enhance what you've got.
Exactly. I think that's what education does, and there's plenty of artists that have developed their style on their own without the schooling and naive style and untaught they call it art brut, and there's lots of labels for it. But it's really just putting in the hours. If you have talent, yes, sure, but if you the more that you devote to it, the better you'll get. So it's kind of like the catch 22. Are they born with it, or did they work to get there? I mean, if you love doing what you do, then you're going to put in the extra hours, and so naturally your talent grows. And people say, "Oh, you must be so lucky to be born with it." No, you're not. You're only you're only born with so much. It's the work that gets you the rest of the way. It's
You said illustrators kind of have like this, they have an inherent talent, but do you think illustrators have an inherent style? And is like your style something, that you can change? I mean, you said you could develop it, but could you change it? Or do you think that most illustrators and fine artists, like, they have this one style and you can usually tell it's their work? Or have you ever seen any that have like, a bunch of different styles or?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that you can change your style, you can experiment and grow, um, but when the focus is on the expression of an idea rather than just copying someone else, I think that's when an artist's unique style is revealed. So yeah, every artist has the potential to provide the world with something as unique as they are, and to a certain regard, that's their style or talent, whatever you want to call it. But it takes that devotion. You can be taught certain techniques, but and change and experiment to develop, your calling card, your look.
Right. I'll never forget when a guidance counselor at our high school told me that I had to take French. I had to learn French because I wanted to study art in college, and all the artists were French, is what she was saying. And I'm just like, okay, I was taking Spanish, and it's so crazy because my favorite artists, were Moreau and Dali, and so I actually did add French, but I kept going with the Spanish. But I just thought it was funny because she thought all these, you have to like learn French because that's what you're only gonna study French artists in college or something. But
There's so many other kinds of artists.
right, right, absolutely. So I'm wondering, what artists inspired you?
Well, I mean, the artists that inspire me, there's so many. Ronald Searle, who happens to be French, but there's Ralph Steadman, Bill Watterson from Calvin and Hobbes, Tim Burton, Jim Henson. I mean, I think of these as all filtering into my subconscious, and I filter it out, or not filter, but it filters in, and it comes out in my own unique way when I create something. But uh, I'm definitely inspired by the lots of different great and offbeat artists. Just so many.
And it's almost like you have like that's almost like your niche within a niche. So you're the illustrations and the paintings, but then your niche within niche is your style, is your offbeat style.
Right.
And do you think that's helped your career in that sense?
Um, Having a niche, yeah, I think that it helps. I think other people more than me, to peg me as a certain type of artist. People like to um, classify. It makes things easier. So when certain people might think of me as a custom pet portrait maker. Other people might think of me as a graphic designer or a custom, illustrator. It's their of course, I do it all, but having those various categories helps people, say, okay, that this when I need a album cover, I'm going to go to Michael Auger, as opposed to um, thinking of when you say you can do it all, people need something to hang on to. It's so much too much overload. So categorizing yourself into different niches helps you connect with all those various different categories.
Right. Almost like, you don't want to be seen as like the jack of all trades and the
Right.
master of none. You want to be remembered for something specific.
Exactly. That's the danger. Yeah, especially with someone like me, because I do a lot of different things, but I don't try to market myself that way. If that makes sense, I like to focus on solving individual problems, um, and so I'll for example, my custom pet portraits I have as
I love them.
thank you. But I have a website domain that goes right to that page. So if you do custompetportraits.com, it goes right to that page, as opposed to all the other different things that I do. If you go to the main, my main website, you'll get to everything. But I'll also have these little categories that help um, when I want to focus in on the various niches that I'm trying to promote myself as.
That's brilliant. So, what is your typical creative process like? I think I read that, you start with sketches and then if you really want to develop it, then you'll paint it. So, can you kind of go into a little bit about your creative process?
Oh, sure. So with my fine art, with the paintings, um, my inspiration really is the subconscious, my dreams. So I'll start with
Like
a
literally?
yeah. When I close my eyes at night, the what I see is those crazy cartoons that I.
Oh my god, I wish oh my god, I wish I saw stuff like that. I'm waking up like looking like waking up thinking about HTML code and
Oh, I guess
deadlines.
it's all depends on what you focus on, in the waking world. But yeah, I dream in vivid color. It's this strange wonderland, and so
Wow.
so so when I wake up and I do stream of consciousness drawing, and I'm just grabbing a sketchbook and letting my mind drift, and then the lucky doodles that I deem worthy become my paintings. Um, so that's how the fine art goes. Now with my graphic design and custom illustration that I'm doing for clients, now that's a lot more structured because I'm usually solving a problem that they're requesting. Uh, so that's a different process. But for my fine art, it's usually just anything goes.
Right, that sounds cool. I mean, yeah, like I'll have nightmares about work and you're dreaming of like really cool stuff.
Oh, well, some of them can be kind of spooky, but yeah, most of the time it's pretty fun.
That's neat. Well, what tools do you start with? You going to start with the pencil? Do you do any charcoal work or Conti crayons? And then like when you go to the computer, what do you do? Do you have like a Wacom tablet or Wacom
I
tablet or
do,
anything?
yeah. So I definitely have a stylus and a very big tablet that I sketch on for my digital drawing. Um, for the traditional, that usually just starts with uh, a basic ballpoint pen, and I just go just doodle, straight ink on paper, um, and it just comes from doodling out. But yeah, with the Wacom tablet, using computer programs, it's basically the same thing, but I've got the power of undo, so that's always nice because I
Right.
don't I don't do the pencil drawing, so I don't erase or anything. But with computers, you could just go back a step, and so it's my digital drawings are usually a lot more polished than my sketchbooks are.
Sure. Yeah. But sketches have a really unique quality all that are own too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love looking sometimes at old sketches, but then I'm just like, I wish I could draw some more, but I feel like it's been so long since I've like really sat down and done it. I just don't know that I could.
Oh yeah, of course you can. It's just yeah, it's just a matter of nothing to it but to do it.
I do have all my art supplies though from back in
That's
college.
good. Yeah,
Like the Conti crayons, the
sure.
charcoals, the Prismacolors. I loved the Prismacolors. Those are the
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
So how do you decide, when you're creating fine art, how do you decide what's going to sell? Like, do you take requests and is there demand for certain things? I mean, I do a lot of animals and
Yeah,
creatures and
well, I'm lucky in that I usually get away with just doing whatever I want, and because
That must be nice.
it is. I'm very lucky that people like my work. So it's not like I really have to cater to anyone except for when I'm doing a custom piece. But that's
Right.
usually a pet portrait or something like that. Yeah, usually it's just whatever I feel like drawing that day, and then hopefully it sells later. Usually it does. Yeah. So I'm just fortunate enough that my personality, comes through in my work, and people seem to like that, want to connect with that, and show off their offbeat style by connecting with mine.
That's awesome. So when you decide, to price your work, what kind of things do you take into consideration?
Size usually with the fine art. With the digital stuff, with the graphic design and illustration, it's different. With that, it's three things: the how soon they need it, the complexity of the piece, and the usage rights that they want. For most of the artwork I create for clients, it's for a specific use, like a magazine ad or a T-shirt, book cover, or something like that. Because buying the limited rights for a specific use is much less expensive than a full copyright transfer, where
Sure.
it grants the rights to do anything they want with it, which I usually only provide full copyright transfers for things like a logo. Most of the time, that's not, they don't need that kind of thing. So it depends on those various factors, how fast they need it, how complex it is, and what rights they want. That helps me figure out a flat rate for those kind of projects. But with my fine art, it's just, it's usually just priced by the size. If it's small, it's this price. If the bigger you get, the more expensive it is.
And do you ever produce more than one of the same type of piece?
Sometimes, very rarely though. I don't like to repeat myself. When I do recreate a piece, I usually make it like a different size or use a different color scheme. I try to make every piece one of a kind. I've had limited prints made of some of my popular pieces to provide, less expensive option for those on a budget. But yeah, I usually don't like to repeat myself.
And where do you sell your work besides on your website? Like, do you sell anything on Etsy or other online places?
I've joined a bunch of different sites, but I haven't really done too much with them. It's mostly my website or through galleries and events and cafes in the real world.
Do you ever put your work, your designs on like any products from, like, say, Cafe Press or Zazzle, like mugs and shirts and stuff like that to
Yeah,
sell?
I
Like,
mean, again, I've done it, and I will do it if a person says, "Hey, I love this painting. I can't afford the painting. Can you make me it into a T-shirt?" I'm happy to do that, yeah, individually, and
oh, cool.
but I usually don't, you know, uh, market myself that way. So again, I've got accounts with all those print on demand sites, but I don't
Right.
really actively use them.
They don't pay you enough either when you sell
Yeah, that's the
something.
thing. It's the markup. You're better off printing them on your own through a printer. You'll
Yeah.
you'll get more of a return on your investment if you do it that way. But on the flip side, um, it's more of an investment because you've got a whole bunch of these things, and now you have to sell them.
Right.
so so I prefer sticking with the paintings. It's a little more traditional, but yeah, I'm always happy to oblige anybody that wants a T-shirt. I'm happy to make it for them.
That's
Yeah,
cool. I mean, it's like that's a really great downsell. I mean, that's a cool thing to have, you know?
right.
You can't afford the big painting, I can give you a
Sure,
t-shirt. Like,
sure.
that's awesome.
I'm a problem solver. I.
Okay, so you said you don't do too much in terms of marketing, right? But like, how are you promoting your work? Like outside of, like you said, you have some custom URLs that point to specific work.
Right.
So do you ever like approach any publishers and say, hey, I do illustration and this is my style and here's what I normally do? And like, do you ever approach any publishers about doing things?
I should.
Oh,
That's a great idea.
okay.
Yeah, no, I've when I was, years ago when I was first getting started, I did a lot of that and got a lot of rejection letters. But
Oh.
I built myself up over the years. Now I should really give it another go because I might have better luck this time. But yeah, truthfully, I keep pretty busy, so I haven't felt the need to actively do things like that, but I really should. Yeah, it's the website. I've had it since, a long time. So like the new century, yeah. Okay, so it's the beginning of this century. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, 2000. I've had my website, so a lot of people have found me and continue to find me through that. And then word of mouth is, of course, the best form of promotion. Past clients recommend you to other clients. And then, there's also the occasional interview like today. So, yeah, all of this helps to promote. Yeah.
And how about social media? Do you promote your work on there as well?
Again, I've got a Facebook fan page and an Instagram account, but I don't use them as much as I should. I keep, I waste too much time on Facebook,
Don't we all?
but yeah, I mean, occasionally I will promote my shows and stuff, and so um, at least my small circle of friends will know when I'll be out next. But I also have a mailing list, so Facebook is kind of redundant.
Well, so you've had a lot of solo exhibits and then group exhibits that you've, been a part of. So how does that work and how do you, get that opportunity to do that?
So my group exhibits are usually juried. So I apply to calls for entry for various shows, and when I'm selected, I show my artwork, and then that leads to connections and invitations to other exhibits.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The solo exhibits are usually invitations from gallery owners or invitations who have seen my work and contact me directly, and that's the best because it's not.
Yeah, that must be
Yeah,
awesome.
it's definitely a high when I get one of those invitations because there's no all the legwork of applying and entry forms and getting your CV ready and all that good stuff. You don't have to do any of that because they already know you. They're coming to knocking on your door. So
Right.
solo shows are much nicer.
Of all the efforts, what do you think gets you noticed the most? The word of mouth?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew the ultimate secret or key that would get me noticed because I'd probably be a lot more famous. Uh,
I'm still looking for it
yeah,
too.
I just keep creating, doing my thing, shamelessly promoting myself. So, to all you listeners out there, please visit artyforever.com. Just keep plugging and that's all you really can do, and hopefully, more and more people will take a second look.
Right. Well, earlier you mentioned, copyright and licensing. I have some like on some side projects. I have some animal themed designs that I've done like years ago and I need to update them and add more and like see what's actually going on in my Cafe Press and Zazzle stores, see what's been added to items, new items and like cuz they'll just add them
Yeah,
and then, it doesn't necessarily line up. So I have to go in there and check them and I haven't done that in a very long time. Years
sure.
actually. But I have found people ripping off my
Ugh,
images and using them for their profile pictures, like on
yeah,
Facebook and all over social media. And when I've contacted them and just politely asked them for a credit line to put like a link to this, like to my stores, because I take all my proceeds I donate to animal rescues and
that's
shelters.
wonderful.
And
Oh, that's nice.
and so all I'm asking for is, hey, give me a credit by giving me a link to my
Right.
store. I mean, they're using these profile pictures to promote animal animal rescue and awareness and stuff. So I'm like, why don't you do that? They get so nasty with
Really?
me. It's like people just think that if they find it in Google Images, then they can use it.
Oh,
And so, I'm wondering, like, have you ever had any issues like with people like, ripping off your images in situations like that?
yeah, I have. I hope that it doesn't happen as much as it used to. Years ago, there was this one website that was selling my work. They had swiped off. Um, and
Mm.
so I sent a cease and desist letter to their internet provider, which, had them take it down right away. Uh, but yeah, I would hope that these days most people know that you just can't steal stuff without getting the original artist or photographer's written permission. But yeah, I mean, the way I try not to worry about it too much. I only post low res images, and I always add a credit line like on the image, embedded in the image, so that they really have to know, they have to think about it. If they're gonna remove my credit line, it's like they have to be aware of what they're doing. They're taking off the copyright warning and in using it incorrectly. It's not like they can plead ignorance and say, "Oh, I didn't know it was yours" or whatever. I make it really easy to track me down. I've got my name and my website on every image. So, and most artists like me, most artists are very happy to negotiate. We all just want to make a living. So, I'm lucky to be.
I don't even want money. I just want
Yeah, just
like a link to
just
my
some recognition,
source.
right? Yeah, I mean, it is a problem, but I try to make it as easy for people to track me down as possible, and just hope that they will do the right thing.
Do you ever go so far as to like actually, update or add the metadata in your files before you post them online?
Yeah, again, I should do that. It's a getting into the that kind of the weeds. I usually don't do, to be honest, but I've got that blatant text right there on the bottom,
Right.
so I figure that's probably more effective because it's visual. They see it. They have to snip it out. It's not like this hidden thing that, oh, I didn't know that there was metadata in there.
Right.
It's like it's right there.
I've got to know, have you ever thought about designing stock illustration sets with your little creatures and animals and
Yeah, I'm wary against stock stuff.
yeah.
I just it turns me off the whole um idea of selling a bunch of this stuff for super cheap and then getting these little tiny royalties on it. It just doesn't make sense. I'd rather have somebody contact me to do a custom thing that's just for them, and yeah, they're going to pay more, but it's going to be worth it because it'll be exactly what they want. It's just not, and most of those clip art ones I feel are not uh, can't can hold a candle to a true custom illustration by
Oh,
it
absolutely.
upright.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so why should I put my illustrations and up the the quality level of those? I'd rather them be the bottom dweller ones that can't afford the real thing to settle for that. That should be settling. Clip art is not good.
All right, great. Well, this has been really fun. And
Indeed.
I would love to tell the listeners where to find you, your
Absolutely. Yeah. So
website.
it's artyforever.com is my main portal that gets you to everything. And then, I've got a whole bunch more, but those are just for individual sub pages. But yeah, Arty Forever. That's ARTY, the number 4, EVER.com.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Colleen.
If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Go to creative-boost.com where you can sign up to get notified of new episodes and posts, share on social media, or leave a comment. Thanks so much for listening.